Thank you all so much. You are all so inspiring. And also another highlight for me has been all the baby pictures under the dome. I feel like that should be like required for all future Dome or Dozen presentations. I feel like I've already failed because I don't have my first picture under the dome. Those were so good. So my career in journalism began right here at Notre Dame at The Observer. I think we might have someone from The Observer here. And it was the start of a pretty typical journalism path. So I worked on the student newspaper. I did some internships like at my local community paper, the Toledo Blade in Toledo, Ohio, 60 Minutes. And I got an internship after graduation at the Dallas Morning News. So for those of you seniors who don't have a full-time job lined up, like all your business friends, it's okay. Not all of us take that path. It's okay to do an internship or a fellowship or something after graduation. And so I present this slide in this way because it looks like it's a linear path. You know, each step of the way you're sort of moving on. But in fact, you know, it wasn't quite so linear, and I don't think any of our paths are so linear. And so I just want to share 3 moments of either doubt or a twist and turn from my path. So when I came to Notre Dame, part of my major was I was an Arabic and psychology major, and I thought I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. I studied Arabic and wanted to live in the Middle East, and I did live there for 12 days because when I went to study abroad in Cairo, the Egyptian revolution erupted, and we were forced to evacuate the country and ended up in London. And so I never did spend much significant time in the Middle East. I did not become fluent in Arabic, which was my goal, and I did not become a foreign correspondent. I also thought I wanted to work on broadcast news. I don't know how many of you, probably aging myself by saying I grew up watching 60 Minutes, but by the time I got the privilege of interning there, I actually realized that I really missed writing. And so something that I thought was, you know, the thing that I really, really wanted to do, I actually missed something else. And so I sort of pivoted back to newspapers. And then finally, I thought I had to work at the Washington Post, a great paper, storied institution. This is Woodward and Bernstein, the 2 investigative reporters who broke the Watergate scandal. Everyone wanted to be them, of course. And so I applied there in college for an internship, and really I wasn't quite qualified. Didn't get it, and I also interviewed there and was a finalist for a job after graduation while I was working at the Dallas Morning News. And I also didn't get it. And I remember very vividly like sobbing after being rejected, like right before my wedding, feeling like that path had dried up and like not really sure where I was going. And so just wanted to share these 3 moments as even if you're sort of on what looks like a linear path, there are many times when it's not quite so linear. And so my job, when I reflect back on this time, each path of the way, each step of the way, life had something else in store for me. And so it was sort of my job not to force a path that was not quite working out, but to let the path unfold in the right time and to welcome those opportunities when it did. And so by the time I got to the New York Times in 2018, I was doing all sorts of news, covering, unfortunately, a lot of tragedies, mass shootings. On the right is a photo from covering the shooting in El Paso. I also got to do some fun stories. I interviewed a 103-year-old runner, and I got her life and fitness advice. And Barack Obama tweeted about it. I came out of the dentist, and like my phone was exploding with tweets from Barack Obama, and that was very cool. It was a cool moment. But believe it or not, I still wasn't sure, like, was journalism what I was meant to do? Was this my calling? I had a sort of a nagging feeling about service, something I learned at Notre Dame. How could I be more of service in the world? How could I more directly impact people? Frankly, like a lot of you in this room doing work that is really directly impacting people's lives. Was I really doing that by writing about people? I was debating whether I needed to switch professions, considering going back to social work school, for example. And then came the pandemic. So some of you may be familiar, this is the New York Times coronavirus tracking database. And through what was a pretty critical moment in all of our lives in the country, I came to find what I would describe as my own personal mission within journalism. And so you may have seen some version of this before. This is not like a new concept, but it is something that has brought me some clarity and peace in moments of doubt in my career. So at any time, whether you're considering your major or your first job, you can sort of do this along the way, whether maybe you're 50 and 60 and you want to make a switch. You can ask, what are my skills and talents? And for me, it always was pretty clear that the best thing I had to offer, at least so far, has been writing, interviewing, gathering and synthesizing information. What brings you joy? For me, I really like meeting new people. I like learning about the world and talking to people and documenting their stories. And this is the big one, I think. What does the world need? How can you be of service in this moment, in this situation? And I think we think of service as this really big thing. You have to do something really grand or personally change someone's life in a really grand way. But in fact, what I found is that I thought what the world needed and what I could bring was three things, which was facts, compassion, and connection. So it is possible to be of service by simply gathering information, scouring government websites, and documenting stay-at-home orders during a pretty scary time in the country. So reliable information can be a source of comfort in times of discomfort. It's possible to be of service by documenting what goes wrong, by not looking away from the hundreds of thousands of American lives that have been lost during the pandemic, and by not looking away from that grief. And it is possible to be of service by spending time with elderly residents of a nursing home who have been locked basically inside their rooms for a year, by sitting with them, being present with them, listening to them, documenting their stories, both their grief and their joy after being vaccinated. And so I just want to end on this image, which is actually from my time reporting in that nursing home. It's me actually talking to a retired Catholic priest who was attending Mass for the first time in I think a year, because they had canceled activities during the pandemic. And so to me, this embodies the best of journalism on our best days, what we would hope to do. Not every story or every day is going to be like that, but to me, the best of journalism is about service. It is about other people. It's not about an ego or a byline. It's about sort of humbly gathering information and not making yourself the center of the story, but making others the center of the story. And frankly, I should be here writing about all of you guys because you guys are the real story. But this is something that I originally learned at Notre Dame, and this idea that do we need to make some big drastic change in our life to be more impactful? And what I found is that I can just bring my own values to the work that I do. And I think we can all do that. So this is, again, something that I first learned at Notre Dame, which is sort of the Notre Dame way, which is what I consider to be the Notre Dame way, bringing your own sense of social justice to the world, wherever you are, wherever you live, whatever job you're in, basically wherever you happen to be. Thanks very much.